Tim Petrovich for Dateline Marion. We're here again with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin, and also with the offensive defensive line coach for the Wildcats, Walter Skeet. And Coach Skeet, welcome to the program.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Second week now that we've had the additional person in, and this is going to be a fun one. Last week was pretty fun too. I thought it went really well.
JD did well. He did a good job and surprised a lot of us. No, just kidding. He did well, and I work with great guys, and I just thought it was about time we get them in front of the camera and let people hear what they have to say and see what I see every day. They're smart and they're talented and they're gifted, and I want people to understand just how special these guys are, and so he's going to be able to include some of his wisdom and his insight into what went on this week.
So, of course, we're going to talk eventually about this Friday's game against Althoff, but as we do, we talk about the previous week's game, and sometimes it's fun to talk about, sometimes not so much fun to talk about. Yeah. The pink out last Friday night, and Mount Vernon won 32-20, and the first thing I observed, Coach, in watching the game was that it's clear that back as head coach at Mount Vernon, Dan Mings has kind of put his stamp back on that Rams team.
Yeah, the moment he got hired, I knew he would make some improvements there. They've been really a program that wasn't lacking talent. We would always comment after playing them that they had, some talented kids on the field. And the other sports in that town had been doing well. I mean, we talked about this last week, I think. Their basketball team, their baseball team, their track team, I think had its best season in years last spring. So the talent was there. What they needed was a leader, a mentor. And Dan not only came in and changed things, but Dan brought with him 4, 5, 6 other coaches that used to work with him. So they didn't just hire Dan Mings. They hired a coaching staff. And I know that helped flip that thing pretty quickly. But a lot of credit goes to the job that he's done, recruiting and getting these kids believing. And so, we knew coming in they were hot and they were playing good football, and they played well again Friday.
Coach Skeet, I'll put you kind of on the hot seat here. One of the things that we've talked about all year is the play of the defensive line, and it seemed like Mount Vernon knew exactly what to do to get those linemen out of position to be able to pick up the yardage, and they ran for almost 400 yards on the ground.
Well, I thought that Coach Mings had a really good game plan. His strength versus our strength, and where he wanted to run the ball, and the way he attacked our defense, I thought he was an outstanding game plan. And I'll be honest with you, I thought his kids played like they wanted it a little bit more. They were hungrier. They were 3-1, we were 3-1. They have a really good offensive line. We have a really good defensive line, and they played a little bit hungrier than us, I thought.
Now, even with the big guy Rivera running the ball, it seemed like they ran a lot to the corners and the outside, and was that something that you saw coming in, or was that something you had game planned for?
Well, we game planned for all of their different runs, because they were predominantly run team. We game planned for their counter, their trap, their ISO, but they ran a lot of it off tackle, and when you run off tackle, you almost negate 3 of our 4 best linemen, in that, because they're running off the edges a little bit more. And there were times where they kind of out schemed us and got us hooked a little bit, and I just thought we played hard. They just played a little bit harder.
Coach Martin, one of the things that we had talked about, you mentioned with their athletes, and that they had some good players. It seemed like, in past years they've made a big play two here and there that you could see flashes of that.
Right.
It seemed like Friday night they kind of put all that together.
They did. I think this is a school that we had 14 straight wins against. And one of the things we stress to our kids is everybody wants a piece of us. Everybody wants to get Marion. And when you had the success that we've had the last several years, some teams have kind of ebbed and flowed and been down, and when they get some talent, they get back to where they think they can compete with us at a high level, they're hungry. And we stress that to our kids a lot. We are going to get the best people have to offer, and we can't come out and then decide at some point in the second or third quarter, throw a switch and start playing great football. We got to play with that. I think Walt mentioned, we got to play with a greater urgency from the beginning, and I think they played with more urgency to beat us than we did to stop that. And again, we as a coaching staff always, first thing we do is we evaluate what we could have done better, because we're in charge of preparing the kids. But I have to tell you, we spoke all week to our kids about be ready, because Mount Vernon's going to come in here hungry. They've got some momentum. They believe in what they're doing. And yeah, I felt like it's one of those nights where they made more plays at crucial times than we did. We needed the big catch, the big run, the interception, the fumble recovery. They did a little better job of that, the big plays, than we did. And in a game that I think against two evenly matched teams, that margin of error is razor thin, and they just made more plays.
One of the big numbers, we talked about it right before we started the program, was turnovers.
Yeah.
And you turned the ball over 4 times. Mount Vernon didn't turn it over. You add a possession that they got on an onside kick.
Right.
So they've got 5 extra possessions. And it wasn't the turnovers so much as it seemed like almost every one of them came at a really crucial time. The one fumble was right after a long run early in the third quarter. One of the interceptions, you were driving. Your team didn't punt the whole game,
That's correct.
but you still gave them those extra possessions.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's kind of been, the 2 losses we have, the turnovers have really bitten us. We've not done a very good job at times of protecting the ball and giving the ball up in bad situations. And so, yeah, we moved the ball really well all night, as you said, didn't punt, but just made those mistakes. And again, a lot of credit goes to Mount Vernon. They made the plays when we were a little off on a throw, or we ran a play and they were able to strip the ball away from one of our running backs. I mean, they made plays, and those are making plays, and we didn't do it. And we got to do a better job of taking care of the ball and protecting our possessions and finishing drives.
That gives me a chance. The fact that you were able to move the ball up and down the field gives me a chance to come back to Coach Skeet, and the fact that we've given a lot of high praise to the defensive line all year, but it just seems like week after week that the running game for the Wildcats has places to go. Evans had some time to throw. At times the offensive line has played and I think improved each week and played pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they've played pretty well almost all year long. They are able to put together long drives, make very few mistakes. They're led by a couple of guys that are have been playing for 2 or 3 years already. Garrett Brenderson, Eli Vickery, and we have some good young players too. Holden Hyde, Levi Tanner, Sloan Orlovich. So those guys, they work their butts off, and they do a really, really good job. And they have been very, very consistent all year. I've been very proud of the fact that they have been consistent.
Offensively, I think probably the one thing that you're trying to figure out, and I know that Evan's trying to figure that out too, but the passing game really hasn't got on track for the Wildcats.
It hasn't. We got off to a good start Friday with a couple of touchdown passes, and I think we're still working and tweaking and changing and adapting, but trying to figure out the best mix of run and pass and screen that we can put together, and exactly what run passes and screens we can put together for this particular group. We're running out of time, so we got 4 weeks. We got to get it figured out, and I think we've tried some different things. We'll keep trying some other things that just until we can find that mix. I think our best football is still to come. I know we saw flashes of it against Cahokia. We are optimistic as a staff, and I think as a team, that we can put together some type of winning streak here at the end and play our best football and hopefully earn the right to continue playing Week 10.
So coming up Friday night, playing at Belleville against Althoff, and this is an Althoff team that it's not the same kind of Althoff team that you've had the last couple of years. They're putting some things together.
Yeah.
They scored 40-plus points against Mount Vernon. They led Centralia for most of the first half, if not the entire first half. They beat Mater Dei. They've taken some lumps, but overall it seems like they're a better team. You're going to have your hands full Friday.
No doubt. And again, they are really hungry to beat us. So once again, and Coach Frazier's done a good job. I think he's optimistic that they are getting better. They were struggling a couple of years ago, and he's got them playing better football, and they've got some really good athletes. Quarterback, running back, a couple of receivers are really talented. They've got some big kids on the defensive line that can play. So they are a much more competitive football team, I think. I think he's happy the direction they're going. And, of course, this is the last time we'll play them. What has been almost 30 years of playing Althoff in football. We're going to end that with this ball game. And so last chance for these two teams to meet. We've had some great games against each other. And they are much improved. And once again, we're going to have to play at a higher level, take care of the football, and elevate our game.
If there's probably a weakness in their game consistently, more so than not, that they do give up some points. And so I know you've got to feel like you're going to be able to put some points on the board.
Well, that's the thing. We just had a lot of conversations with coaches and with other people about score comparison. And we say from the beginning, you really can't compare scores to predict the outcome of a game. But everyone does it. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, you look at a certain game Althoff played, and you look at the score against Mount Vernon, and you look at the score against Centralia, and you try to make an evaluation of what that means for us. It's very difficult to do. Yeah. It's been that way in almost every conference all year. Score predictions are getting thrown out the window because it's almost like political polling. It looks one way and ends up being something else. So it's kind of weird because Althoff's offense has looked so good at times against Mount Vernon, a good football team. And then, didn't have the same output, played well, but didn't have the same output against Centralia. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to find out. But I certainly think we can look at the film and we can tell enough about the talent they put on the field, the individuals. They've got throwing, running, catching the ball, playing the D-line. Yeah, it's going to take a good effort to beat them.
Coach Ski, let's talk about your defensive line against them, because they've got two guys that have run for – or one guy that's run for about 350 yards in the Nave, kid who's been around for a couple years.
Yeah.
Quarterback's thrown for 700 or 800 yards. He's got a couple of good receivers. There's got to be there's the mix in there. You got to make it uncomfortable for him to throw, but you've also got to make sure that you don't let those running backs get into the second, third line of defense.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They're a very diverse offense. They'll throw the ball. They'll run some counter. They'll run some stretch on us. They'll run vertical. So we're going to have a good pass rush, and we're going to have to stop the defense or the run game. And I try to tell my kids, don't worry about them. Worry about yourself. If our kids do what they're coached to do and follow the technique that they're taught every single day, we'll be okay. You know what I mean? A lot of times our guys, try to make bigger plays than they need to make, or they want to, and they do things that aren't sound, and that hurts us. And we've been preaching all week: just do your job, to take the right first step, shoot your hands, do the little things that will make you successful. And if they do that, I think we'll be okay stopping the run and the pass.
And I've seen that even in the games that the Wildcats have lost, when you see a kid who does what he's supposed to, follows his assignment, does the proper technique, things like that, he's right in the right spot. We saw that 3 or 4 times against Mount Vernon.
Well, it happened quite a bit against Mount Vernon. Some of the D-line, they're so used to making big plays. They want to make big plays, and it's not lack of effort or anything like that. It's them wanting to get that tackle for a loss, or get that sack, or do something great that they take a bad first step and they end up getting hooked, and they get outside on us, and our backers can't get there in time because, they have to scrape over linemen coming out to get them. So if we do what we're supposed to do, I truly believe we'll be okay.
Offensively,
yeah.
I know you feel like you always feel like you can move the ball and do some things.
Sure.
What have you seen that makes you feel like you're a little confident there?
When I look at the last few weeks and I look at the Cahokia game, the Mount Vernon game, we have moved the ball well. Seeing Evan put a couple of touchdown passes on the board with a couple of good throws makes me optimistic. A big thing for me is protect the football, don't turn the ball over. We've not punted very much this season, and so that's a good sign. But I think what he and I and all the coaches are struggling with is consistency. We do it so well at times, and then there's these little steps backward we take that either stall a drive, stop a drive. A lot of things we've cleaned up. We've had less penalties lately than we had early in the season. but it's the consistency we're looking for, and it's that ability of players on both sides of the ball to trust what they're taught, and not try to overdo, not try to do too much, and that's when we tend to get into some trouble. So as the taping of this takes place, we're off to a really good start practice-wise, and we've complained about the fact that our practices have been inconsistent, and I think that carries over to our gameplay being inconsistent. So we really stress to play well on Friday, you got to practice well during the week. So we are really working on having the best week of practice we've had, trusting what we're taught, trusting each other, trusting teammate to teammate on the field, not trying to do too much, and develop that consistency like we did in the Cahokia game for 4 quarters.
A couple of kids I want to talk about this week. One we've talked about quite a bit. Another one we've talked about, but not on this side of the ball. But first of all, another 150-yard rushing game for Patrick, and it seems like every week he just keeps putting games together.
He does. Credit to the offensive line, and now we get with saying that to our tight ends. Our tight end play has been very good. Our lead blockers in this offense have been really good. It is team effort, but certainly Patrick has been, as we said last week, probably our most consistent performer on the offensive side, and so proud of the effort he's giving, not just running but blocking as well. So that's a big part of it, but I think just proud of how far he's come, because he missed a lot of last year with injuries,
right,
and didn't really have a sophomore year per se, and it's good to see him having a good year.
The other one, I think the defensive line play has kind of taken some things away from him on the defensive side of the ball, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But Brody had 12 tackles last week, and he just really, really had a great game defensively.
Yeah. He's been out there since his sophomore year. He's a guy we rely on for leadership and for that experience, because a lot of the guys in the back part of our defense are new players this year, and so now they've got that experience. I think Brody's had a lot to do with helping them develop, and they're going to get challenged this week. We're going to see a real passing attack, the first one we've seen since week 3. So they're going to bring the ball, and they're going to put it down the field against us, and we're going to need Brody to step up and have another great game.
I have to ask this question. Do you have to go on the road this week, or do you get to go on the road this week?
We don't mind being a road team at all. It just becomes something we're accustomed to, and I care more about where we're traveling to as far as facility-wise. And the new Althoff facility is very nice, good field. Doesn't have quite the tradition-rich feeling of the old gladiatorial arena that was Lindenwood Stadium.
Yeah.
But I like their new field. I like playing there. We've had a lot of success there, so comfortable there. Centray the following week has the best grass field. Even just looking at it on film right now, it is unbelievable. So good places to play, and then the final road game is Mattoon. So we don't get too caught up in road trip home. We love home games, of course.
Right.
But road trips are what they are, and we consider them business trips and go get a win.
Althoff's field now is more traditional. When you go from the big crown in the old stadium, and then the candy cane turf that Lindenwood put in, now it's a regular green artificial turf field.
It is. It's a good facility. They've done a lot to bring that to their school, and it's a good place to play a game. And we expect a worthy opponent and a tough ball game, and hope to get a win.
All right. We have offensive defensive line coach Walter Skeet. That's Marion head coach Kerry Martin. Friday night at Belleville against Althoff. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrovich.